In the 1990s, the New Zealand Grand Prix belonged to the New Zealanders.
Ken Smith, the 48-year-old Aucklander, in his 32nd season of motorsport.
All homegrown champions, including Craig Baird, who joined Sir Jack Brabham and Sir Stirling Moss as a three-time winner.
A New Zealand Grand Prix, it meant that's your break. If you wanted to make it internationally, you had to win that race. It was the biggest race in New Zealand, and that was your one shot. When you look at the names from 1950 to when I won it, there's a lot of big names, and yeah, it certainly means a lot as a New Zealander to win the New Zealand Grand Prix.
The 1990s was a period when things started to become a little more difficult to attract drivers from overseas. Long gone had been the days when Formula One stars like Jim Clark and Graham Hill, Jackie Stewart and John Surtees would come to New Zealand for a summer break. Formula One had moved on, the number of rounds of the World Championship had increased, and there just wasn't the capacity anymore in people's calendars for drivers to be able to have the free time to come to New Zealand and Australia for the Tasman series that was always held in January and February. So we were pitted generally against Americans and British drivers and the Australians who would come here, and it was a period of transition as we figured out just where the New Zealand Grand Prix was going to be heading as far as the sorts of cars that were going to be run. Former Atlantic was petering out, and in Australia they had developed a category called Formula Holden, Formula Brabham as it was also called, and we adopted that, which was a logical thing for New Zealand to do at that time.
I got my win in 1994 before I had an interesting experience in the 1995 event. I'll let the news story explain.
Even the best drivers have the odd bingle or two during their time at the wheel. That's part of paying your dues. If that's the case, Greg Murphy's account is back in black.
I was in the New Zealand Grand Prix of all races I had to be, and basically got to the end of the front straight, which is about a 230, 240 kilometre an hour straight, and put my foot on the brake and the pedal went to the floor, which not a very nice feeling. It's one of the, I suppose it's the worst feeling you can ever have when you're racing a car. And I tried to turn, got a fair way around the corner, but it got to the edge of the track, and then it was all over. And it sort of basically, the car actually left the ground, took off, and then ended up going through some trees and landing up sort of right way up, thank goodness, against a pine tree.
There was then a 2-year period without a Grand Prix due to a lack of a locally based premier single-seater racing class at the time.
The failure of a New Zealand Grand Prix to appear on the calendar for 96, 97 was something that really caught the attention, because there was the risk that if it went too long without a Grand Prix, then we would lose the right to have that title, because Formula One had captured the title Grand Prix, and people assumed that the word Grand Prix always meant a Formula One race. And as a grandfather clause, essentially, a couple of races in the world that had long held the title Grand Prix were allowed to continue with it. So the Macau Grand Prix, the Singapore Grand Prix, although they later became a round of the World Championship for Formula One, and the New Zealand Grand Prix were all granted that title, but we needed to get our act together and have a Grand Prix again. So the 96-97 period couldn't go on very long, so that we didn't risk losing the opportunity to continue having a New Zealand Grand Prix.
Simon Wills, a driver who had tested himself in Europe before returning home, brought the decade to a close with back-to-back victories at the Ruapuna circuit and Christchurch.
I would say it was the greatest thing that I achieved in motorsport.
And Simon Wills runs down to an historic victory. Last corner, 43rd New Zealand Grand Prix is going to go to this young man from Auckland. A very nice young man, calls himself a quiet achiever, but man, he is going off inside that cabin, that's for sure.
I really enjoyed watching Grand Prix when I was younger and seeing these guys battle out, the Craig Bairds, the Kenny Smiths, the Paul Radisic's, and some of the Americans that came over were fantastic to watch. And then me actually being able to be a part of all this and to race against guys like Scott Dixon, Greg Murphy, Craig Lowndes, and a bunch of other people like that was just Yeah, really the pinnacle of what I managed to do. The first year I was very fortunate. They actually allowed me to hold the trophy for a few months. So we actually booked another seat on the plane and we had the trophy sitting next to me on the plane to make sure it was looked after, because it's an amazing trophy. Just the history and everything, you just had to make sure it was right. So we flew with that and got a few questions on the plane about what the trophy was all about, and I told them it might have been something to do with Porn Star of the Year. My car was actually a championship winning car in Formula 3000, so the car was excellent pedigree, and what was quite amazing about these cars is when they ran in the Formula 3000 spec, they were actually faster than some of the rear of the Formula 1 field. So the cars were just amazing cars, and we're pretty lucky to have them racing over in Australasia, and we put on some really good shows in those things.